Welcome to another episode of the Snakes Are Us TV podcast, presented by Southeastern Reptile Rescue and its founder and director, me, Jason Clark.
Are you ready?
And here we are. Now, as you can tell, I'm not in my studio. But before I tell you where I'm at, I'm not going to tell you where I'm at yet. I just have to say, it is cold out here. My gosh, it is cold. As I was setting up to do this, I was like, this is a really stupid idea. And now that I'm sitting here, I really like being in my studio recording. Now out here where I can see my breath. It is barely 20 degrees. And okay, I'm going to tell you where I'm at. I drove, I don't even know, 800 miles to go somewhere I've always wanted to go. I am at Gobbler's Knob in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. You can read it behind me. So I know you couldn't have guessed where I was, but that's where I'm at. And you're probably wondering, well, this is a reptile podcast. Why in the world would Snakes Are Us TV drive all the way to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, that many miles away? Because I promise you, it is way too cold for any reptile to be out here right now. It is too cold for me to be out here right now. And you might hear this fumbling around. I bought these little packets to warm my hands up. And because I couldn't press the buttons on the thing. I was like, am I pressing the button? And I was hitting something else. It wasn't even a button. Or I couldn't feel anything because my hands are just numb. So I don't like winter at all. I don't know anything good about wintertime. I know nothing good about wintertime. So why am I here at Groundhog Day in Pennsylvania in February when it's freezing? Well, there's a few reasons, and one of the reasons has to do with a groundhog situation I had to deal with. I think it's pretty cool to tell you about. But one reason is I love the movie Groundhog Day. Okay, it is one of my favorite movies. It is it's one of those redemption stories where if you haven't seen Groundhog Day, you need to go see it. I think it's free to watch right now on Amazon Prime, and it's about a guy who's basically just a jerk, and throughout the movie he kind of learns how to be a better person. Basically, is what it is. It's really cool. Okay, these little things that I bought to warm my hands up are just now starting to warm, and I can feel my fingertips. Now, it is so cool to be here in Punxsutawney at Gobbler's Knob. Now they kind of kicked everybody out of here, and this place is closed down. So I got special permission to be here to film with Gobbler's Knob. And so you can even see the stump right there in the background. And I got to go on stage earlier and open that little stump up where the groundhog goes. And the groundhogs are pretty cool. And, I had an encounter with a groundhog. My first encounter with a groundhog was my friends Jeff and Jody. They own a zoo. And they have tons of animals. When they were opening the drive-through portion of the zoo, they had asked me about coming up there and putting my drone up in the air and getting some footage of it, some promotional stuff that they could use for their website and social media. And I said, that's fine. Well, I had some programs coming up, and I said, I think it'd be so cool. I don't remember what it was. There was a reason I did it for some reason, but I wanted some mammals for this one program. And so I don't know what I borrowed from them. At the time, I had a possum, and I was using a possum in their program, and I was talking about how possums are immune to certain snake venoms, Now, I don't think they're immune to coral snake venom. So if a possum gets bit by a coral snake, then that can kill them. But venoms of pit vipers, copperheads, cottonmouths, and rattlesnakes, possums are immune to. And also their body temperature is so low that when they get bit by an animal that has rabies, the rabies virus can't survive and it dies. Now, I think there have been instances reported of possums having rabies, but it's extremely rare. So we don't consider possums a rabies vector. So possums are really good to have around. So I had some possums that were rescued that I was keeping for somebody. And so we were also using them for education, talking about, just because we don't just talk about snakes, we talk about the benefit of snakes and we talk about the benefit of all the other animals too. Because, I love all animals, not just snakes, believe it or not. And so Jody and Jeff that own the zoo, they said, well, yeah, we've actually got an animal you can borrow. What about a groundhog? I said, a groundhog? You have a groundhog? I said, yeah, we actually have a few groundhogs. So I've seen a groundhog. Now, where I live in central Georgia, we don't have groundhogs. Now, if you go to North Georgia, where the hills and the mountains, you can start to see groundhogs. And I've seen a few on the side of the road, and I always thought it was so cool because when you go somewhere and you're traveling and you see an animal that doesn't live where you do, it's so cool. It's so exciting. I just love that. I remember the first time I saw a bear was I got called out because they called me and said, there's the police department. They called and said, hey, we need you right now because they called me about snakes. I said, oh, okay, what's going on? They said, we have a bear and it's in somebody's backyard. I said, well, what do you want me to do with a bear? I said, well, I don't know. You know about animals and you know more than we do. We need you here. And I was like, oh, so I drive up like 45 minutes away. I get to this backyard and there's a big black bear up a tree in somebody's backyard. And they're like, what do we do? I said, well, I don't know. Leave it alone. It'll come down the tree. Let's leave. It'll be fine. They said, well, we're in a neighborhood. Why is a bear here? I said, well, the bears live in North Georgia, South Georgia, and portions of Central Georgia, and they move back and forth. And so you can have bears kind of just show up in your area, but people aren't expecting sometimes to see wildlife like that, especially if they've never seen it before. So people kind of freak out. So that was the first time I saw a bear. The second time I saw a bear was I was driving down this road in Okefenokee Swamp in South Georgia. It's a 500,000 acre swamp, and it borders Georgia and Florida, right there on the border. And I was driving down the road, and I look in this field, and there is a black bear. And before I could get my camera up to get a picture, the bear, of course, ran off. And I was like, oh, man, well, at least I got to see a bear, A year later, I'm going back to the same area, and I'm getting close to that clearing, that opening where the field was, where I saw the bear. And I'm like, I remember seeing that bear, and I couldn't get a picture of it. What if there's a bear there now? Let me get my camera ready, just in case there's a bear there. What's the chances of a bear being in the same spot? So I get to that spot, and there was not a bear there. There were 3 bears there, and there was a mom with 2 cubs, and I was like, oh my gosh! And I was so freaked out that there were 3 bears, 2 cubs I get to see. I couldn't even get the camera to turn on. I did not get a picture. Anyway, those are the only 3 instances that I personally have ever even seen bear in the wild. I haven't looking for bear, but I just think they're really cool. So anytime that you get to see an animal, especially one in the wild that doesn't live where you live, to me, that's really cool. So I like groundhog. Anyway, so I was doing this program, and they were going to let me borrow a groundhog, right? And I didn't know anything about groundhog. So this groundhog, I don't know if they're this big around. It's a big groundhog, and it's in this dog cat carrier thing, And so they give me it, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I do it? Like what? I'm like, do you just pick it up? Oh yeah, you can pick it up. I said, is it friendly? And she's like, oh yeah. Jody's like, yeah, it's a very friendly groundhog. It loves me. And so she picks it up and she's holding it and petting it. And I'm like, just like a cat. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. It's just so friendly. So I was like, yeah, so let me borrow the groundhog, and we'll take it to this event and we'll show all the kids the groundhog and do some education with it and with all the other animals we're going to do. It was pretty cool. So I get the groundhog home to my house, and I want to show my kids. I say, guys, guess what I've got in this box? They're like, you brought us a cat. I'm like, no, I didn't bring a cat. We're not getting a cat. Got a groundhog. Like, what's a groundhog? Yeah, because we don't have groundhogs where we live. I said, let me show you. So I sit this thing down in my kitchen floor, and I open this little gate, the little door to open the little cat carrier, and the groundhog comes bolting out of there and runs under my kitchen table and is like growling, like making this like noise, and then he starts like chomping his teeth at me. I'm like, this is not the groundhog that she let me borrow. I don't think this is the same one she was holding. So I'm like, oh, she just picked it up. Maybe it's just scared. I go over to pick it up, and it starts just snapping its teeth at me like it's ready to kill me. I'm like, I thought groundhog just kind of ate grass and things like that, and they attacked people. So I called Jody. And I'm like, hey, listen, how many groundhogs do you have? Because I don't know if you gave me the right one. She said, yeah, that's the friendly one. I said, well, what does the unfriendly one do if you have it? Because this one is not a friendly groundhog. This thing came out of the cage and is running around my kitchen. I can't catch him. He won't let me get close to him. And I don't want to get close to him because when I did a while ago, he chomped his teeth at me. And she's like, no, he must not like you. He didn't do that with me. I'm like, well, what do I do? She said, I mean, I don't know. She lives like 2 hours from me. She's like, you're going to have to just figure out. So anyway, I get the groundhog back in this cage, and I decided I was absolutely not going to be using this groundhog. I mean, here I am. I can take a rattlesnake out, at an event. There's kids everywhere. I can take an alligator out. I'll do all that. I'm not about to take out this crazy groundhog because I can just see that going really, really bad, really quick. So I did not use the groundhog that day. So that was my first time being like within close proximity to the groundhog, And after that, I never really planned to ever be close to a groundhog again. At least that was my plan. And then I'll never forget the day the call came in. In town where I live, they have this event called Pancake Day. And I get excited about Pancake Day. They only have Pancake Day one time a year. And Pancake Day is a fundraiser for the Kiwanis Club. And I do the fair for the Kiwanis Club and all this. And so basically what it is you go there to the Kiwanis Club, and it's on a Saturday morning, and it's like really cheap. Like for $5, you get all you can eat pancakes, sausage. They have like milk, even chocolate milk, and I love chocolate milk a whole lot more than I should. But it's all you can eat, and it's just amazing. And they only have it one time a year, and it's so good. And so my whole family has been going to that since I was a kid. And the Pancake Day rolls around, this Pancake Day. I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to Pancake Day. So I go and I meet my family there, and I'm getting my plate. And as soon as they put the pancakes in my plate, my phone rings. And it's 911. I'm like, oh, because it's cold out. And it's not like snake season yet. I'm like, what are they calling for? So I answered the phone and said, hey, we have a problem in downtown Atlanta. In downtown Atlanta, there's a big parking garage. And roaming around this parking garage is a beaver. I said, what? I said, yeah, there's a beaver. And we've asked a lot of people to come and get this thing out of the parking garage because it's people don't want to be around it, and it's causing some trouble. If you come get this beaver, I said, well, why are y'all calling me? They said, well, we know you deal with snakes, so if you can deal with a snake, surely you can catch a beaver. So well, I mean, I've trapped beaver before, but I've never dealt with a live beaver. And I keep thinking back to that groundhog. And that groundhog, that groundhog eats grass. This beaver is chopping down trees with his teeth. I don't know if I can't handle a groundhog in my kitchen, I don't know that I can handle a beaver in a parking garage in Atlanta. But, yeah, let me eat these pancakes and I'll head that way. So I said, I'm going to go catch this beaver. So I ended up taking my nephew and me, and my daughter Audrey went. And so we drive to Atlanta. And so when we get there, they're like, yeah, so, it's over here. under these cars, and then it went into this little hole right here. And so we got this orange cone and stuck it in the hole. And so this is like a service room for the electrical panels and stuff. And so a beaver is in that room. So, okay, now we got like a couple of dip nets, we get, like, if a dog catcher on TV, don't use like a net to catch a dog in the cartoons, So we got that. And I'm thinking, I don't know that we brought a catch pole, because I don't think a catch pole will work really good with a beaver, because you put a catch pole, one of those nooses around like a dog's neck or an alligator's neck. I don't know, like the beavers have necks. I don't know if I've ever seen a beaver have a neck. I don't know, maybe they do. But anyway, so I'm like, okay, we've got this little cage to put it in, and we've got some nets to catch it with. So let's put these nets right here by the door. I'm going to open the door that way. If the beaver comes running out, we'll get him in the net, right? Well, we open the door and go in there, and it was not a beaver. It was not a beaver. It was a mean, wild groundhog. And my heart kind of stopped, because I'm like, oh, this is not good. I've had bad experiences with tame groundhogs. Now I'm about to try to catch an upset groundhog that's not want to be caught. And so in the process of us trying to catch this thing, I don't know what we did. It gets out of this little tiny room where it's contained into now a 4 or 5 story parking garage with 300 cars in it. So we then proceed going back and forth under strangers' cars in a parking deck trying to catch this groundhog. And it was not fun. And anybody watching this absolutely, without question, knew that we had never caught a groundhog. There was nothing that we were doing that looked even halfway professional about how we were doing this. But we caught the groundhog. We caught the thing. And it was chomping its teeth at me. It was doing the whole thing, chomping its teeth. And it was not good. We got the groundhog in the little cage, We got him in there. And put him in my vehicle. I was like, okay, well, where do we go? And so now when we caught the thing, the guy that had called about the groundhog being there in the parking garage, he said, I live in North Georgia. And I just drove down here. And when I parked, I heard a noise, and I jumped out and looked, and this groundhog ran out from under my car. And because we're trying to figure out, in Atlanta, like, you don't have groundhogs in Atlanta. They don't live there, okay? You have to go a lot further north of Atlanta to get to where groundhogs live. I don't live in Atlanta. So we're like, well, I guess he was up under your car somewhere. I have no idea. Where do you fit a groundhog under a car where he will fit and ride for an hour and a half or 2 hours? I don't know. But that's how he got there, I assume. So we decide, okay, groundhogs are cool. I can't keep this as a pet. Even if I could, I don't want it, because it's not a friendly groundhog. It's already been trying to get us. So we decide to drive to North Georgia and just turn this thing loose where the groundhogs live, So we're driving, and we get kind of way out off the interstate, out in the woods, and there's a bunch of hills, and I'm like, you know what? This looks like somewhere I would see a groundhog for sure. Absolutely. So we get off the road, and then we just start walking through the woods, and we find a little hole in the ground. Now, I don't know that it was a groundhog hole. And now come to think of it, if it was a groundhog hole, are they territorial? Maybe we put them in the wrong hole. I don't know. Anyway, but we opened the cage and opened the door, and as soon as he came out of the cage, thank the Lord, he ran straight into the hole. He did not try to attack any of us. He got away and took off. So that was a good thing that he got away. But those are the only times I've actually dealt with an actual real live groundhog. And so, being here at Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. I've wanted to come here for years to this event. And what happens is all the festivities kind of start. Not yet. We're still waiting on them to start. But all the festivities start around 3 a.m. That's kind of when everything opens up. It's 3 a.m. And I think the biggest crowd that's ever been here where I'm sitting right now is about 35,000 people. There's 35,000 people pouring into this area. And they start coming in at 3 a.m. and they start jockeying for position to get up close to the fence where they can feel the groundhog and see if he sees his shadow. And then I think somewhere around 7:20 in the morning is when he does it. Now, I was trying to figure out, where in the world did this weird thing come from? Who started looking at groundhogs seeing their shadow? And I didn't know, but apparently this actually started in Europe, somewhere in Europe. Over there where they have not groundhogs, they have hedgehogs. And if you don't know what a hedgehog is, hedgehogs are pretty cool little animals. And now here in Georgia, you can't own hedgehogs. Those are illegal here in Georgia where I live. But there's several states in the U.S. where you can own hedgehogs as pets. I don't know why they did it, but there was a day in Europe. I don't even know what the day is called, but some celebration of something, and I don't know, go look it up. I read it and immediately forgot exactly everything that it said about why they started it. But basically, if the hedgehog saw its shadow, then there were 6 more weeks of winter or something to that effect. And so over time, people up north here were hunting groundhogs. That's the thing. You go out and you hunt groundhog. Like, I guess wherever you live, whatever animal's there in abundance, people hunt them for sport, for food. For food, I don't know, do people eat groundhogs? I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that. I think these people here love groundhogs. And the cool thing was, I got in my pocket. When I came here, they gave me this really cool coin because there is the Punxsutawney Groundhog Club. The Punxsutawney Groundhog Club is the one that's over all this stuff. And they gave me this cool coin that says you can't see that, Punxsutawney Groundhog Club on there. And then on the other side, it says Happy Groundhog Day. So I thought that was very nice of them to give me a groundhog coin. Kind of like a challenge coin. I collect challenge coins, got quite a few of those. So now I have a groundhog coin, which is awesome. Anyway, somebody was hunting groundhogs here, and then somebody said, well, maybe we can start the tradition here because I don't know why they started the tradition here. I mean, I think it's really cool. I think it's a very weird, very strange holiday. Festival. I mean, I don't know what it is exactly. Is it a holiday or is it a festival? And maybe it's both. It's on the calendar. It's on my calendar, February 2nd, Groundhog Day. But basically, if the groundhog comes out and he does not see his shadow, that means that spring is right around the corner, and which is exactly what needs to happen because this cold is not. This is not cool at all. So back to seeing animals that don't live where you live, I love going to see this thing. I mean, of course, it's always better seeing things in the wild than it is animal captivity. Not that I'm against animals in captivity because I own several animals that we use for education. But I would definitely rather see something in the wild than in captivity. But even in captivity, a zoo, especially if it's done right, I think it's really cool. So Jody and Jeff, the ones that let me borrow the groundhog, I don't know why they let me borrow a groundhog. Part of me thinks that she did it just to be mean because she knew that it liked her, and didn't like anybody else. I don't know, but when they were back to when they were asking me to come and film with my drone and get some footage of their zoo and stuff, their social media. When I went there that day, my friend Jeff He said, yeah, we're going to take out the golf cart. I just bought this golf cart like this week. I mean, just 2 days ago, I bought this golf cart. I said, oh, yeah, this is a nice, brand new golf cart. I like this. So we get on the golf cart. And now this is a drive-through zoo. It's a huge open area. The animals just walk out there and live together. And you have this road you drive through and you can see the animals and feed them. And it's just so cool. These beautiful green fields and pastures and trees everywhere. And it's just so cool seeing all these animals out there. And so we go out there. He's like, yeah, we'll go to the top of the hill and you can start filming there. I said, cool. He said, now, when we get out here, just watch for that one ostrich over there. I said, which ostrich? He said, well, that one over there, the big male. I said, yeah, that's the male. Yeah. I said, well, there's like 3 of them. He said, yeah, but that's the one we have a problem with. I said, well, how do I tell which one's which? He said, yes. It's hard to tell which one's which. Okay. Okay, I'll watch the ostrich. So anyway, while they're filming, and I get my drone, I fly my drone up in the air, and I'm getting some aerial footage and stuff, and I bring the drone back down, and the whole time, this zoo is open. People are paying admission. You can rent a car and drive their car through, or you can drive your own car through there. And so there's just a lot of vehicles, just, hundreds of people there driving through their zoo. And we're out there in the middle of the field, getting camera footage and stuff. And so I bring the drone down, I land the drone, I put it away. And just before we're getting ready to go to a new spot and do some of our filming, Jeff just yells, ostrich. And I see him running and jumping the golf cart. So I don't look around to see, where the ostrich is. I just jump in the golf cart with him, and he hits the gas, and we take off very slowly. Because he bought the slowest golf cart I've ever seen in my life. And I look, and this huge 8-foot plus tall male ostrich is right here next to me. This is a regular golf cart. It doesn't have any doors on it. There's no protection. It's just a bench seat and nothing right here, okay? Except for this huge ostrich. And this ostrich is actively trying to kick me. And if you've never seen an ostrich's foot, that one big toe right in the middle looks like a spike that's meant to kill, okay? I mean, these ostriches live in Africa where lions do. They have to be able to defend themselves. And these things can flat out run really fast. Those legs are so powerful. They can literally kill you with kicking you, I mean, it'd be bad to get kicked by a horse, but even that's just a flat hoof. Getting kicked by an ostrich with this big toe spike, oh man, I mean, that's bad. So we're on the golf cart, okay? And the ostrich is right here. Well, the golf cart is not going nearly fast enough as it should be going. So we're not losing the ostrich. And the ostrich is like trying to kick me. And I'm like, so Jeff turns the golf cart to the left, trying to go the other way away from the ostrich, right? Well, the ostrich is keeping up with us. So now all we're doing is we're just driving in a circle on the golf cart. Pedal to the metal, going in a circle as fast as we possibly can. And the entire time, the ostrich is keeping up with us. Okay? And somehow, now this golf cart doesn't have a back seat. It's got like a flat bed place like for storage and stuff. You can put stuff on the back of the golf cart. I don't know what happened because I didn't see it. I'm just like, but the whole time I was yelling. I don't know what I was yelling, but I was yelling stuff like go faster, help. I was yelling a bunch of stuff. And I wasn't looking back. I'm just trying to go. And somehow the ostrich ends up on top of the golf cart in this bed. But it had, I don't know if it was trying to kick and it went up in the air and fell, but it landed on its side. So this huge ostrich, I don't know how much does an ostrich weigh? This thing had to weigh 300 pounds or more. It was huge. And this ostrich is laying on its side. And I look back, and all I see right here, because the back of the seat is only this high, and like the bottom of it, there's nothing there. So all I see is the ostrich's feet, the bottom of both of his feet that are bigger than my hands, right here next to my back, next to my side, which is just completely unprotected. All this ostrich has to do right now is just one kick, and I'm about to see what I look like on the inside. He's about to rip me open. So I just bend down and put my head down between my knees, and I start just screaming, waiting to be killed. And at that point, I did see out of the corner of my eye, the ostrich somehow jumps up off the golf cart, hits the ground, and when it fell, we went this way, and we got away from an ostrich. And once we calmed down, we drove around to the other side, and we were like, okay, let's do some more filming. I'm like, where's the ostrich now? I'm like, I'm on edge now. And people are driving by in the zoo is like, hey, man, we saw the show. That was awesome. I'm like, it was not a show. I almost died. Y'all just almost saw me die. It's not a show. And so when we got back up to the gate where people come in, Jeff's wife, Jody, was up there, and she just absolutely loved the whole thing and said, yeah, we could hear you screaming, Jason, all the way from over here. Everybody was just watching you scream. I'm like, your ostrich almost killed me. So anyway, that's why they let people drive vehicles with doors on them, not golf carts that have no doors and zero protection out there. So I don't recommend that. But I do recommend being in a car, but not a golf cart. We often get calls to go out and catch stuff like that. On my YouTube channel is not an ostrich, but it's related. I'm assuming they're related. It's a big old bird. Instead of from Africa, it's from Australia. I think, isn't that where they're from? The emu. Now, here's what annoys me about emus. Not emus, but people who call them emus. It's spelled E-M-U, okay? And I think it's pronounced emu. And I hear people call them emus. Yeah, you see a big old emu over there? Well, it's not an emu, it's an emu. So, anyway, I don't even know if that's how you say it. If it's not, I think that's how you should say it, is emu. If the correct pronunciation is emu, if that's right, I do think it should be changed to emu. That's what I think. Now, I get calls about those too, even though I don't know why they call me about an emu. That has nothing to do with reptiles or anything that I do. So I get a call about an emu that is trapped on a baseball field. So I'm like, well, nothing else to do today. Let's go catch an emu. And so I end up inviting my friend Randy, because Randy happened to own a bunch of emus. And I'm like, hey, you want a free emu? Like, come over here with me and catch this thing and you can have it. So we went over there and we did catch that and got it in her horse trailer. And she took it home. I had that thing for many years. But we get a lot of weird calls like that. And, going back to beavers, beavers are amazing animals. And that's one call that we get all the time. I mean, just recently, we got a call here in the dead of winter about a beaver in North Georgia. And now the call wasn't about a beaver. It was actually about an alligator living in this beaver pond where these beavers live. And it was a lady, and she's like, yeah, there's an alligator out here. I said, you serious? Because, yeah, I mean, it surprised me so much. It's not what I expected to see. I said, well, when did you see it? She said, well, I was out here, and there's a path around the lake, and people go walking, and I was out here walking on the path. I said, well, let me ask you a question. Were you walking at night or just before dusk? Like just before it got dark? She said, yeah, that's exactly when I was walking. I said, yeah, that's what I figured. She said, what does that mean? I said, well, it means the alligator you saw is a beaver. She said, what? I said, well, yeah. I said, first of all, it's really, really cold this week. So if there's an alligator there, it's way too cold for him to be out swimming around. I said, because you saw him at the top of the water, right? He's like, what, 4 or 5 foot long? She said, exactly. I said, yeah. I said, you got to think, this time of year is too cold for alligators to be swimming around, just enjoying the water, And I said, especially, when it's getting dark and the temperature's cooling down, like, you can see them in the wintertime, but they're going to be just coming out, laying in the sun and going right back down and hiding somewhere. I just out for a nice swim. But beaver come out at dusk, and then they'll spend all night out, roaming around doing beaver things, whatever beavers do. And I said, what happens is you got to think, an adult beaver, his body might be 3 foot long. His tail is 2 foot. So that's a 5 foot long animal swimming across the top of the water. And he's got his head up, And I said, did you ever hear any kind of a splashing, like a slapping noise? She said, yeah, we did hear that. I said, that's a beaver. One thing that beavers do when they realize that you're there watching them is they will take their tail and slap at the top of the water. And as soon as they slap, then they dive and go under and disappear. But that's their way of trying to scare you off and move you out of their area because they don't like, commotion and people kind of being around there with them and stuff. And so, she took it very well, but some people get really, really upset when I tell them that what they're seeing is not an alligator or a beaver. Now, of course, some calls we get, of course, are alligators because we go and catch those. But when a person sees a beaver and they convince themselves that they've seen an alligator, and then they start telling their friends, I found an alligator. I called an alligator crapper. I'm going to get somebody to come catch this thing. Can you believe there's an alligator out here? And they start telling all these people who've seen an alligator. Well, now it's going to be really hard for them to come to grips with the fact that it's not a gator. It's a beaver because guess what else they have to do? Now they have to go back and tell all these people, well, it wasn't a gator after all. It was a beaver, and they kind of feel dumb. So when I talk to these people, I try not to make them feel stupid because they're not stupid. I understand why they think that. I understand how they can mistake a beaver or alligator. I mean, it definitely makes sense. Here in Georgia, we have to go catch an animal that's not a snake or an alligator or something because not that I go and catch that stuff all the time, but sometimes because of what I do, people are like, well, Jason does snakes. Surely he does this too. Yeah. But when we get licensed to catch certain snakes and things, you might as well go ahead and get licensed to catch everything else. And part of the license includes that. So, I can legally go catch your coyotes and raccoons and possums and skunks and all these things. I don't advertise that I do that, but occasionally we do get calls to go and do that. And, the funny part of it is no one's trained me on how to go do it. You just got to kind of do it. And of course, know the laws and regulations and do it legally. But I got called to go catch a skunk at a wedding venue. They said, listen, this is a really nice wedding venue here, and we're out here getting ready, and tomorrow we have a big wedding. Hundreds of people are going to be here, and the deck right here where people dance on the deck, there is a skunk under it, and all you can smell is a skunk. Can you please get here and catch this thing and get it out of here? And you can't let it spray anything, because if it sprays everything, we probably can't get rid of the smell before in the morning. So we need you to. I'm like, well, if I catch it, I sure don't want it to spray anything. Please don't spray anything. So I'm like, yeah, I'll come catch a skunk and do this for you. And at this point, I'd never caught a skunk. When I drive to North Georgia and even parts of South Georgia, for some reason I see a lot more skunks in other places of Georgia than where I live. So I don't really ever even see a skunk where I live. But I'm like, how hard could it be to catch a skunk? Surely it'd be easy to catch a skunk. So I took my little trap, and the traps we use don't hurt the animal. It's a little box trap. They walk into it, the door shuts, and they're just kind of stuck in a little cage until I get there and get them out of the cage. So I was like, okay. I took a couple of cages and kind of set them up around the edges of this deck on the ground. And I took some cans of sardines, put the sardines in there, in the can, and just left it. And I came back the next morning, and sure enough, guess what I had in the trap is a skunk. Now, I drive the snake van, what we call the venom van, and I'm thinking I don't care what happens, I'm not putting a skunk inside my van. I used to own skunks. I had some domestic skunks that were confiscated from a pet store that was selling them. I had to hold them temporarily till we got them to the zoo they were going to. And these skunks were descented and they stunk. I wasn't about to put an undescented, that would be a scented skunk in my snake van and risk anything happening. So I took my truck. I'm like, I can at least just sit in this whole cage. If I catch a skunk, sit in that whole cage on the back of the truck. And then if he does spray, at least it's not in the truck. No, I get there and I just got me just a small plastic tarp, just a small one. And I just kind of hold that tarp kind of up in front of me. And I just walk really slow, trying not to upset the skunk. You know what I'm saying? Trying not to upset this thing. And I walk over there to him, and I just very gently lay the tarp, just so gently, just so sweet and gentle. And I lay the tarp over the trap. And then I just, like, before I said, everybody get back, nobody make a noise. I let me put my cell phone on vibrate, nothing, my phone ringing. And I picked the trap up so gently, and I just carried it so slow as at the truck, and we drove away. We left and go, turn the skunk out. But man, luckily I did not get sprayed. And then more recently here we had to go to my friend's shop, KEM Diesel. They do a lot of work on the truck that I put the skunk on the back of. He said, "Hey man, in our parts room here, we got a skunk." I said, "Oh, wait." He said, "Can you come get it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course, I'll come get the skunk for you." And I do not want to go get it. I don't want to go deal with this thing at all because I'm just waiting. Just like with venomous snakes, if you handle venomous snakes long enough, the numbers catch up with you and you get yourself bit. That can happen. I'm like, if I handle skunks enough at some point, surely have to get sprayed. Man, I don't want to get sprayed by a skunk. Ugh, it's just horrible. So I go there to a shop and he's like, yeah, it's in there. So I take all kind of boxes and, there's different automotive parts in these boxes. And I just start lining all these little things up, kind of directing, because there's all these shelves. I don't want the skunk to get under a shelf and I got to drag him out and upset him. He's over here in this corner where I can see him. And I'm like, okay, if I can kind of scare him that way, gently scare him that way, we can kind of get him on over there and he can go into this trap. And so I was able to do that. We didn't, ended up not getting sprayed by this guy and got him to go in the trap pretty easily. So it wasn't bad at all. But I haven't done too many skunks. I've done a few, but I don't advertise it. I don't like doing it. I've done bad exclusions out of attics. I've caught raccoons. I've been called out to catch coyotes before in neighborhoods. We get a lot of beaver calls, muskrat calls, muskrats in ponds and digging into the banks, and we get all kind of calls. And if it's in the wintertime and it's slow and there's just absolutely nothing to do, sometimes I'll go do those things because it is, fun kind of learning how to do that and dealing with and seeing different animals. But in some of those things, especially if you're not, it's not something that's in your wheelhouse, something that you're not used to doing. I don't want to be out there learning how to catch a skunk and learning how not to get sprayed by getting sprayed. Yeah, I don't want to learn by trial and error. But sometimes that's kind of how you have to do some of this stuff. But it's the same thing, with alligators. I'll never forget the first alligator, the first big alligator I had to go catch. I've been catching alligators for years, and I've been keeping alligators for years. So I had dealt with my big alligators that have been in captivity and having to jump on them and tape them and all this. But the first time I had to go catch a wild 8 or 9 foot alligator by myself at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I remember, I'll never forget it. I jumped from this gator, and this gator, he was ready for me and I was not ready for him. And luckily he did not get me. Luckily, I got away without getting hurt with that. But, I learned a lesson from that, how not to do it. Getting to see animals that live in the wild is always my favorite. Like I said, I think it's cool to see animals, even if they're in captivity. because you get people to learn to appreciate these animals. You get kids to see these things, just like with the alligators that we own. It's so cool being able to take out a young gator, a baby gator, tape his mouth up, and which doesn't hurt the gator, and they're letting the kid pet and touch and even hold an alligator. And so you remember that, and I remember that, and that gets people to where they love alligators. And it's the same thing as snakes, getting people to touch a snake and pet a snake and have the interaction. They can say, oh, yeah, this is not a thing that's just kind of out to get me, that wants to destroy me and wants to hurt me. That's not what this is. This is really cool. So I think that's awesome. I think this is awesome what these people are doing here. And the cool thing, I did not know this because I was wondering, where does the groundhog live all year? Here in town, in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, in downtown, there's the groundhog habitat. They had this thing set up where this groundhog lives, and they call Punxsutawney Phil, as his name is. They was Phil. Apparently, this is the oldest living celebrity ever, because they've been doing this thing for well over 100 years. Over 100 years. It's the same groundhog. Here's what they say. They say they bring Punxsutawney Phil out here with all the members of this club in the summertime, and they have a picnic here. And at the picnic, they give Punxsutawney Phil a secret elixir, which then gives him 7 more years to live. Well, if they do it every summer, they're doing that once a year, and once a year to give him 7 more years to live, he's never going to die. And this is going to be an old groundhog. Anyway, he lives in town in this big groundhog habitat with a bunch of other groundhogs. And apparently you can go there 364 days a year and see them anytime you want during the daytime. They're out moving around. And then the one time a year you can't go there and see them, I guess, is when Groundhog Day, which is where we're at right now. And he's going to be making his appearance here just a little bit. Now, I'm going to be leaving here soon, and it is so cold. And so just me saying I'm going to be leaving here soon makes me happy inside, because it is under 20 degrees right now. It's in the teens. My hands are not even cold. I mean, they might be. I can't feel them, so I'm assuming they're probably cold. I don't know what they feel like at this moment. I want to get ready to wrap this up here, but I just thought I would come and film somewhere different. This is my first time doing the podcast on location somewhere else. It is so cold. Golly, it's cold. I look forward to this groundhog not seeing his shadow in just a few hours. That's what I'm hoping. He better not see a shadow. I'm ready for spring to be here. I'm ready for warmth to be here. I'm ready for winter to be gone from here. I don't like this at all. Anyway, I'm really glad that you guys joined me tonight for episode number 22 of the Snakes Are Us TV podcast. Can you believe it's episode number 22? And here I am, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, for Groundhog Day. I've always wanted to come here to see this. It's been so cool. One cool thing about being here and just talking to people who's been out here today before they closed us down earlier was there were people here for this event from all over America. I mean, states, people have been flying in for this. And it was so cool just to talk to these people and listen to them and hear their stories and where they're from and what this silly event is, what it is. I mean, I think it is a silly event, but it's a cool event. I mean, to come out here and bring all these, tens of thousands of people right now are waiting to get in here where I'm sitting to see a groundhog, and everybody I've talked to has been so friendly and so nice. It is so cool. And, what I found is when I get to travel around and I get to go meet new people and you talk to these folks, when they find out kind of, what I'm doing here, and I'm doing a podcast, and I like snakes and I like animals, whatever I'm doing. What I find is that when they see that you're passionate about what you're doing, well, the people who know more about stuff than I do, they're then willing to teach you stuff, And then the people who see that I'm passionate and don't know about a certain subject that I might know, those people are more willing to listen to you. So I just think that is so cool. Anyway, before I freeze myself to death, which is what I feel like I'm about to do, these little hand warmer things I've got in my pocket, they are like barely warm. They're like doing nothing. They're doing nothing. Anyway, thank you. Thank y'all so much for joining me for episode number 22 from Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. It is cold out here tonight. And yes, I did record this on Saturday night. I guess it's Sunday morning now. And so we're playing this live for you guys on our YouTube channel live. But I'm in the chat with you, so I'm here with you. But this was recorded in the wee hours of the morning. It's Sunday morning. So anyway, glad to be here. And I can't believe they just let me come in here. And I got to go up on the stage earlier before it got dark. And my daughter Lily's with me. She went up on the stage. We opened a little door where the groundhog goes in and out of. And, it's so cool. This is like a dream come true. So if you haven't seen the movie Groundhog Day, go watch the movie. You got to watch it. When I was driving here, I had the movie play and just listen. I've seen it 50 times. It's one of my favorite movies. And, I think it's free right now on Amazon Prime. So go watch Groundhog Day. Really, really cool. And I am extremely thrilled to be here. I'd be so much even happier to be here if it was warm, and it's not. So thank y'all for coming and joining me for episode number 22 of the SnakesAreUsTV podcast. I'll be back next week. But until then, remember, Jesus loves you, and I do too. Have a great night. Thank you very much for joining me, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please consider leaving a 5-star review. That helps me so much in pushing this podcast out to even more people. I record every Thursday, so check back next week for a new episode of the SnakesAreUsTV podcast.